So here are my pages for November in my country diary. I did 3 pages this month. Was a little bit of a struggle because once again I was sick for a lot of November with my son starting daycare. We both had quite a bit of illness, but hopefully we're on the mend. So this is my November title page. This is the Arbutus tree with berries, and this is a beautiful tree here on the Pacific coast where I live, and it has very bright, striking orange bark that peels, and then these leaves are sort of bright to dark green and sometimes glossy looking with a paler underside, and then the berries are sort of orangey red with like a bit of a nubby texture on them. And I love these trees. So this is the first time I've done a painting of the leaves and berries. I did do a painting of the berries, one of my first attempts at watercolor way back when, before I had any training. I wish I still had that painting so I could compare it, but I have no idea what happened to it. Yeah, so I'm really happy with this spread, and the lettering inspired by Edith Holden. The tree has little white urn-shaped flowers in the spring, and the scientific name is Arbutus menzae, I believe. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this was the latest full-length class that I did for the watercolor garden. So I did a full-length step-by-step lesson on how to paint this leaf here particularly, and then also how to paint this berry. And the berry lesson launches on December 9th, and the leaf was already launched previously. So those are the latest lessons in my class, How to Create a Country Diary, that I am building as I go, adding seasonal content that I launched in September, and basically I add lessons and written articles and tips on helping you create a country diary like this. And that's one of the classes available in the Watercolor Garden, which is my online school. You can get more information on the Watercolor Garden in the links in the video description below. The next page I have some of my November notes here. And then this is called a wood blewit mushroom, and I've never seen these before, so I was really excited to find one of these at the marsh. And believe it or not, even though they are purple, they are an edible mushroom that you can eat. Of course, I'm not going to try and eat it because mushrooms are very risky unless you're very experienced and take spore prints. I did take a 3-day mushroom ID class with a mycologist quite a few years ago. And I did try some of them, but it was verified by a mycologist at the time. And now that I have my little guy, it's just not really worth the risk. But this is sort of showing the November light that was cast out that day, of the sort of grayish, darker light of winter. And then there's some fallen leaves around it just to imply that it was sort of in and amongst the leaves. Actually, a bunch of them were covered up by the leaves, and I barely noticed it, but this one was sticking out. So I have been experimenting with adding a little bit of understory and sort of little bits of faint backgrounds to my botanical paintings to add context. And now I haven't actually done anything on the back of here because, as I mentioned, I was sick for most of November, and because I've gone back to work, I work for an environmental tech company by day, I haven't had as many opportunities to do my walks at my beloved marsh. So I usually only go once or twice a week now, rather than almost every day. And then, yeah, I just was sort of limping through life. So what I'm going to do here is just write about the mushroom that I found and put some botanical information about it here, which I think is really cool to do as well. And this is my final page in my November country diary. This one actually took me quite a while because, as you can see, it is an extended spread. So I started this one first before the title page and the other mushroom. So this is showing some of the mushrooms that were out early in November. So there's the Amanita muscaria, which is a fly arrogant mushroom, which is kind of like your typical fairy tale toadstool. This one was done with ink and wash, and then again a little faint background and some lettering, and then I open it up and we have a collection of mushrooms that I found. So I'm not sure about pronouncing all of these scientific names, and I tried to ID them as best as possible, but again, mushrooms are pretty hard. A lot of them look alike, and unless you do spore prints, you can't really be certain. But we have the Mycena leptocephala, this one, Lacaria amethystina, and amethystina is for amethyst because the common name for this is the amethyst deceiver. It's amethyst because it's a beautiful purple color, deceiver because once it gets older it loses its purple color, and then it's quite hard to ID because it changes shape. This one is the Russula rosea, so rosy Russula is the common name for this, and this one comes up in the same spot at the marsh every year, and they're just striking and beautiful. This one, I think it is a Chalciparis piperitus, not sure, but I did my best. And then I think this is a species of agaricus. Again, there's a lot of similar looking mushrooms in this genus, but this almost kind of looks like the mushroom that you would buy at the grocery store, and apparently it is edible. Again, haven't tried it, won't try it, but yeah, so, and then I decided to add this little bit of a background here. The day or that time of the month when I was taking these pictures, it was actually quite sunny and bright, so I did this sort of mix of olive green and raw sienna to make this nice sort of bright fall-like color. And then I added in just some little sort of anchoring bits of understory and ground surrounding each mushroom to kind of tie it together. Otherwise they're sort of just floating in space, and I wanted to bring it together. And then I did the writing like this because I kind of wanted it dancing across the page, and also it wouldn't have been enough room if I just wrote them straight because they're all pretty long. But I'm really happy with how this spread turned out, and it was super fun to paint. So all I did was I extended my normal page template, and I just cut it in half, and then I just marked like a margin here and trimmed this off with my paper cutter. So then I have this flap area. And then on the back, I wrote a little bit about each mushroom. So sort of the common names, and then a little something about each species that I thought was interesting. And this is a really great way to make like a wonderful nature journaling memory, because I feel like nature journaling captures the memory and like the feeling of the experience or the time of year so much better than just taking photos, especially now that everybody has smartphones and photos are kind of a dime a dozen. And we all have thousands of them, so it's not really as unique as it used to be. Not that taking photos is bad, but this is something that I get out of nature journaling that you just can't get out of taking photos. So those are my November pages, and I have some inspiration already for December. I'll show you my templates I have here. So I haven't started painting these yet, but what I do, I did go over this in like the very first video I did for my Country Diary series. You can check that out on the linked playlist in the video description. I have all my Country Diary video updates collected there that you can watch. But I just sort of cut out a picture of the writing from Edith Holden this time, just to make it quicker. So I took a picture out of the book and then I cut it out in Photoshop and put it in here. I've actually gotten like fairly confident with doing the lettering style now, so I did this one freehand without sort of using hers as a template, because it's now been a year of me doing these titles and I've pretty much picked up how to do them with the little sort of Victorian or Edwardian serifs on them. So that's kind of neat that it just sort of happened over time. These are the photos that I have taken so far. Well, not all of them, but some of the ones I've taken for December. And what I did again is I put the photo into Photoshop and then I just roughly cut it out. And then I dragged it into my template page, which is the 6x6 square page. And here's the margin marking off where my little spiral bound holes will be. And then I've just positioned them how I like. And the reason I do this mostly is for positioning, just because when you draw something, you could draw these individually and then cut them out and position them. And if you don't have Photoshop, you could just print off the pictures of these and cut out each piece and then move them around on the paper. But I just find this way the easiest way for me to get a pleasing layout. And honestly, I think that a pleasing layout or composition is more important than your actual painting skill, because that's what our eye first looks at, not the scrutiny of how good your washes were or how many highlights you reserved. It's how everything's laid out on the page. So I'd encourage you to try that out, just with cutting out some pictures and moving them around. And then this is the next one here. This is the candy cap mushroom, which I am going to be making a lesson in the watercolor garden this month. So launching later in December will be this little mushroom painting. I print them out in grayscale just because I only use these to sort of transfer onto my watercolor paper, and it's not really worth using the color ink. So then I have some writing about this one here and the common and Latin name. So that's how my December pages are going to start out. And then of course I will use the color photos displayed on my computer screen for my reference, and not really use these black and white ones. Though looking at black and white photos is really good for identifying tonal variation when you're starting out. Anyway, that's what is coming up for December. So stay tuned for the next video, and I will see you soon.